I always wanted to build my own PC. After buying my first PC back in 2017 from Digital Storm, I was always scared to spend a bunch of money just to have parts not be compatible or my GPU not fit my case, so I avoided giving it a try. I decided to give it a try and use ChatGPT to help me source and pick out parts for my build. I wanted to focus on performance on a budget, and I have to say, ChatGPT did a good job. Starting with the CPU, ChatGPT recommended the AMD Ryzen 9700X. I wanted a future-proof build, which meant going with an AM5 motherboard, as AMD will continue to use this architecture until 2028. This CPU was also recommended because of its ability to help with streaming, gaming, multitasking, and the single-core performance was good for the price range. ChatGPT then recommended the Gigabyte B650M Aorus Elite AX motherboard because of its strong voltage regulator module, Wi-Fi 6 capabilities, and most importantly, again, it supports the AM5 architecture, making it future-proof for the time being. Not much else to say about the motherboard, as it was a basic motherboard to fit our AM5 needs. As for the CPU cooler, ChatGPT recommended the Coolmaster 212. Later on, ChatGPT changed this to the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE, which I didn't notice and had already bought the Hyper 212. Reason for the change was the Thermalright cooler would be better suited for the CPU. However, this isn't a huge deal since we aren't going to overclock this build and the 212 should be sufficient. I'm also too lazy to return it and get the other cooler. For RAM, ChatGPT recommended 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 memory. The 6000 megahertz and CL30 offered with this RAM was great considering our budget. This RAM was also recommended as it offered a good performance output for the 9700X and proven quality of Corsair. As for storage, ChatGPT recommended a 1 terabyte M.2 from Kingston, a solid M.2 and priced lower than many other options. For the power supply, a Corsair RM 750X fully modular power supply was recommended. Plenty of power for our build, plus a little extra in case we do decide to overclock in the future, which we most likely won't. Last recommendation, arguably one of the most important, is the GPU. ChatGPT recommended the RX 7800 XT. I went with a used model from eBay. This was recommended for the VRAM and 1440p gaming I wanted to achieve. The GPU came pretty dirty, so I cleaned it with some compressed air. Only issues I ran into was the M.2 drive not showing up in the BIOS or when trying to install Windows. I updated the BIOS first, hoping this would fix the issue, but it didn't. Checking Gigabyte's website, my SSD was listed as compatible, so it wasn't a compatibility issue either. After further research, I found a lot of users reporting the same issue I was facing, and so I made the decision to just return the SSD and get a higher quality Samsung 990 Pro that was on sale at Best Buy. This fixed the issue, and I was able to install Windows with no issues. All in all, I think this build turned out pretty well for my first time. I really enjoyed the build process. I'm glad I made the decision to attempt my first build. A little nerve-wracking with my SSD issue, as I thought maybe I had broken something on the motherboard. But if you run into issues, don't freak out. There's usually a solution to your problem. Take the time to find the solution. I'll leave a list of the parts I used in the description if anyone wants to copy this build. Putting the parts together wasn't too complicated after reading the manuals for each part and using YouTube if I got stuck.